Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today loved fashion and wanted to start her own retail shop at an early age. After having her first daughter, it ignited a passion for kids fashion and to open a children's clothing store. Please welcome the owner of Yaya Lou, a curated children's store promoting ownership of fewer, better things. And welcome, Chelsea Santos. How you doing,
Hi.
Chelsea? How you doing
Great.
today?
So good. I'm so happy to be here. I am excited. I've watched this podcast and I've always hoped to be able to share my story. So I was so grateful when you reached out to me.
I love it. I love it. So my usual first question always is, what's your go-to lunch or sandwich?
Yeah, so we'll go with sandwich, and that's such an easy answer for me. I love the eggplant parm from Stasio's Deli. If you have not been to Stasio's Deli, you have to go.
That's a real good one. That is actually a very, very good one. I do love Stasio's. You really can't go wrong with Stasio's. I think I've heard Stasio's more than any other restaurant, I think.
I figured as much. I was like, it's so basic and the obvious answer, but in Orlando, you can't get a better sandwich. So.
No, I totally agree, especially since they make their own bread and everything. I've actually been trying to get them on the podcast, but they're nonstop. So you know how that kind of is when you're, especially with them as a family business. So tell people a little bit about the story of how you started and opened Yaya and Lou in College Park.
Sure. So I had my daughter, my first daughter back in 2013. And I was always into fashion. I've always been creative. But as soon as I had my daughter, like you had said originally in the intro, it ignited my passion for children's fashion. And I am originally from New York City. And so I would travel back often and I would see all of these kids stores with so much cute clothes, like unique, high quality that you can't find necessarily in big chain stores. And there was just so many brands out there, European brands, but just so many small children's brands that you could get in these small shops that you couldn't find anywhere in Orlando. And I was like, why doesn't Orlando have something like this? And I would talk to people and they're like, I know, right? Why doesn't Orlando have something like this? We have a couple of boutiques, but they definitely have more of like a Southern vibe. And it just wasn't the vibe that I was looking for my own taste. And so it encouraged me to be like, hey, if we're missing something, then that's when there's, a space to create something.
Yeah.
And that's how I got started.
So I'm intrigued. I love this. I love the origin story, but there's something that that caught me when I was doing research on you, or on the whole thing, is that you came across the store's location like I was like a few years ago, right? Like before. And that was like, so tell me a little bit about how that kind of I'm all about the idea, like I kind of tell people, like, the idea of manifestation or just saying things out loud sometimes, even though you may not have thought of it, but the mere fact, like, I read something about that. So share a little bit about that story of how you came across it and then what the gap of time it was before it actually became the location.
Yeah. So I had the idea actually back in probably I think I first brought it up probably in 2015 to who's now my ex-husband. Still good friends though, so I have nothing negative to say. But to the girl's dad, I was like, I really, really want to do this, and I'm not sure how you feel about it. And I was working full time at the time, which again I'll get into. But I was working full time at the time. I'm like, how could I make this work by going after my dreams, but still, not completely taking the risk of leaving my full-time job. And that was back in 2015. And I lived in Windermere at the time. And I started looking actually in Windermere and Dr. Phillips for locations. But then in 2019, I moved to College Park from Windermere. It was my dream to move into a bungalow. And so we sold our new build home back in Dr. Phillips Windermere area for a bungalow here. And then we were walking the strip, Edgewater Drive, if you're familiar. It's the main strip in College Park. And there was an empty spot. And we both look at each other and we're like, oh, that would be like the perfect location for a children's store. It's like the quaintest, cutest little town. There was not a single children's store in this area. And I was like, do you really think I can do this? And that was probably that was actually in 2018. That was probably October of 2018. And I ended up signing the lease in January of 2019. So then it was like quick. I had the idea. And then January I had signed the lease.
That's awesome to be able to hear that. I've heard a few, like Jeff from Maffrey's had a similar story where like they saw it, they envisioned it, and then it just kind of all kind of came together, which is great. The
Yeah.
name of your store, Yaya and Lou. Tell folks a little bit about where the name came about.
Yeah. So because I was encouraged to open the store from my own children, I knew I wanted to dedicate it to them. And so Yaya and Lou is actually my girls' nicknames. My oldest, Yaya, her name is Amelia, but my second child could never say Amelia when she was little. So she called her Yaya for probably like the first 3 years of her life. She would call her older sister Yaya. And it's stuck. Still to this day, she's going to be 12. We still call her Yaya. And then my little one is Stella Louise, and we call her Stella Lou. And Louise is after my grandma, who is the one that was super into fashion. She's a New York City lady. She's always been into fashion. She was like my icon. So I am glad that I was able to tie in my grandma and my girls' nicknames. And to this day, I'm like, it is so true to exactly how I wanted the store to be. And I'm so thankful for that name coming to me.
Yeah, no, I think it's so great. It has a nice name to it. The great thing about it is like if you ever went into the realm of creating your own clothes, it's a great name for clothes as well, like a brand, and
I
things like
agree. Don't
that.
get me started because
Okay.
I agree.
Uh, um, so no, I think that's awesome on how you've kind of what it's kind of done everything for you. So one of the things that I appreciate is the fact that it's at least from what I've seen from afar, because obviously I don't have a little one, I have a teenage daughter, so I don't get to do shopping as often for in a children's boutique type store. But one of the things that I've appreciated or seen is that you've kind of like you have like the kind of the vision of what your store is, which is obviously like you said, it's like not stuff that you're going to find at other locations. It's a little bit higher. It's like not the Southern Charm. It's a little bit more, kind of like the certain labels and brands that you're looking for. But what I also like is that you've kind of evolved it where you've looked at other opportunities within your own space,
Mhm,
which I think is so important because you could have just stayed and been like, I'm just this. But I
mhm,
think you've created what you've almost kind of created, and we'll have you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've created, like the Encorner,
mhm,
which is basically kind of almost like an encore of people's being able to possibly repurpose and have some of their products that are similar to what you have. Maybe the kids outgrown it, now they can actually trade it in, get
mhm,
some Yaya and Lou credit, things like that. The fact that you do the book reading, you have like the little, what is it, the little playground,
mhm,
that type of thing. I think all those things are just something that I think I appreciate the fact that you kind of like, what can I do next? How can I utilize my space? But at the same time, create something that would make people come in more.
mhm,
So I'm kind of curious, talk a little bit about how that evolution is kind of gone on from like where you started and where you saw that, because I think sometimes small business owners get stuck in their ways and
mhm.
they're afraid to pivot, even though as a small business we can pivot faster than anybody else,
Right.
than a larger corporation.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yes. This is all so true. Everything you just said is so true. I went into it with the idea that I was opening a boutique or like a small children's store with unique labels, cool clothing for 0 to 8 years old was my original thought process. So when I opened it, I, opened up accounts with all the labels that I was looking for. And it did it exactly how I first initially envisioned it. And the thing about that is that you realize quickly that not everybody is into exactly what your vision was. And so I loved it. So there was definitely a lot of people that loved it. But it's like you're not going to cater to everyone in the Orlando area because they're not necessarily from New York. They don't have that same style. They've never heard of these labels. They're definitely like look twice at the price. And so you just learn so quickly from opening how you thought it was going to go to, okay, we're going to have to make some changes.
Yeah.
And that's how I started to I am constantly, if you know me and you know my small business, I'm constantly like, what are we going to do next? And it's not complete. You don't want to completely derail from what the vision was, because then you've just lost the entire authenticity of what your business was. But it's just slowly progressing into what it can be to get the most amount of community within your business. So you're staying true to yourself, but also you have to be ready to pivot, or it's
Yeah.
just it's not gonna work.
Yeah. So tell people a little bit about what Little Locals Play Town, the Encorner. Tell people a little bit about what that is. Like, so
Mhm.
especially if, people listening that have kids and they're like, oh, I've never heard of Yaya and Lou. Well, I'd love, what interesting things. Cause you also do a weekly, is it weekly or monthly? The readings.
Yeah, so every week on Fridays at 10:30 is story time. We've been doing that probably like that's been since really early on. And so we celebrated 5 years this year. We're going into our sixth year. And we've probably been doing that for at least 4 of the years. But it's every Friday, 10:30. Some Fridays are obviously going to be more busy than others, but it's just to gather the community in. I was always looking for story times for my little ones. And because we have the space, we have it's safe, it's air conditioned. We have now the play area, which makes it even greater, to invite kids in, and just something for parents to do, especially to meet one another, to be honest, because you feel isolated as a mom. And I was like, how can we bring the community together? And so every week, 10:30 Friday mornings, we're
I
doing
love
story
I
time.
love that. And then for End Corner and the little play area, talk a little bit about that evolution of like what that exactly is. What can, if they were to come into the store, and what, just how what all that is about.
Of course. So Encorner is our secondhand section. We also started that pretty early on. So in about 2020, about a year into the business, that is my baby. That is my passion. That is like my absolute favorite part of the store. I'm so grateful every day that I get to be a part of, creating a sustainable cycle in our community. So what it is I mean, it's self-explanatory that it's our secondhand section, but a lot of people assume that they can only bring things that they've purchased here, and that's completely incorrect. I would never want to avoid sustainability just because you didn't buy it here. That's not
Yeah.
what it is. And so on our website, we have a brand directory of like the high-end brands that, like I was initially talking about. Because we are fewer better things, and so we're looking for like high quality sustainable makers, and just things that you spent a lot of money on, that if we didn't find a new home for it, it's dead in the water. And that kind of hurts your soul when you spend that kind of money on it.
Yeah.
Plus, because they're so high quality, they have so much life left in them. So what it is that you can bring in all of the items that your kiddo has outgrown. We sort through them. We take quite a bit of them. We've actually continued to add more and more brands as we've learned about brands, as we've heard feedback from our customers. And then you get 30% of whatever we're going to sell it for, back in store credit. So I mean, that adds up really quickly, especially if you think about other consignment stores. You're getting like,
Yeah.
pennies on the dollar for your item. But we give 30% of the sale price in store credit. So we hand out like hundreds to $500 store credits weekly. I mean, we're getting in items every single day that we're open. And yeah, so that has been like my absolute favorite part. It's slowly taking over more and more of the store. And I mean, it's probably going to continue to take over a little bit more. It's just where my heart is and what I feel best about doing. And then for our little locals, we have a pretty big space. If you haven't been in here, we're about 1,500 square feet, but it's like long and narrow. And so it just felt like we have this space that we can, what else can we do for our community? That this is actually, when we rebranded, we made sure to call it a place for children, because I wanted it to come off as like, this is not just a retail store. This is not just for shopping. You can come in here, have a conversation, meet people. And so that's when we had the idea to use some of our space for Lil Locals, which is an indoor play space. Something that was absolutely lacking in the Orlando area. Slowly, we've continued to see more and more, which is fantastic because Orlando is hot.
Yeah.
And there are just so many other places out there that have these indoor play spaces, and we were lacking. And so we were able to partner with a teacher, and she goes by the name of Nature and Nurture is her brand. She's a Montessori teacher, and she curates our play space every 3 months for us, and it is completely free to our community. So
That's awesome that you do
yeah.
that. I think that's great. And yeah, I think you also offer, if I read correctly, you guys also offer, since you have enough space, you
Mhm.
offer event space as well. So like for a
Correct.
party or anything like that,
Yep.
sometimes parents are always looking for something fun to do for their little ones.
Yes.
What better way to do it in a air conditioned place and be able to
Mhm.
have some fun with it.
Exactly. Yes. So we have a party space within the play area. It seats about 12 kids. People are always looking for indoor spaces to host. We make sure everything is always going to be clean, safe, bright, and welcoming. And so if it's those four things, then it feels good to us, and that's what you'll find inside always.
Yeah. No, I mean, for the time that you've been in business, I mean, obviously very successful, hence the reason. And I kind of want to chat about something that I know you recently experienced, and because you've been very successful in Orlando, but I also know you were also very successful in Tampa.
Hmm.
And you had another location there, and some unfortunate issues happened there where it wasn't even a your thing. It was like, for at least from what I saw, business ownership basically took over, and they basically said, hey, you got to vacate, we're going to do something with the building. Can
Hmm.
you talk a little bit about what you learned from that experience? Because and I guess the other part is, I want to talk about the two parts. Let's talk about first the beginning part of it, which is making that decision, you
Hmm.
as a small business, to now open another location. Because it's not like, when someone opens another location in Orlando, like, oh, it's right around the corner or 2 blocks. You're about an hour and a half away, give or take with traffic, and you're opening a new location. And then, so let's first talk about that, like that next big step of like, hey, I think I'm ready to take that. And
Hmm.
then after you're now everything's moving, you're now having to deal with oh crap, like I now have to like shut this down.
Hmm. Yes. My greatest heartbreak of being in business, but also a huge learning lesson, and I wouldn't change a single thing. But so back in 2020, which was only a year after we opened, I was contacted by Hyde Park Village, which is in the Tampa area. If you're not familiar, it's a very high-end shopping plaza. It's beautiful. It has a ton of high-end stores, and they reached out to me, and I was shocked at first. I thought it was spam. I was like, can't be that they actually are like talking to me. I've been in business for a year, but then I confirmed, and it was legit. And they had written to me saying they would like to open a children's store. The girl had been following my page for a while. I was the exact vibe that they were looking for, and she was hoping that I would take a spot. I went back and forth with them for a little bit back in 2020. And ultimately, I was like, I really don't think that I'm ready for this. I haven't had enough experience in the space. And so we let it go at that. And then she came back again in 2022 to see. She said, we're still looking for a children's store. You're still the one that I want. Is this something that we could work out? And then I like seriously started to consider it. And then I gave my version of what I would want it to look like. And we went back and forth on that. And then ultimately they couldn't meet what I needed to feel comfortable doing it. So then dead in the water again. And then they came back to me early last year of 2023, like right around January, or 2 years ago. Sorry, now it's 2 years ago. Gosh, these years are flying by. In January of 2023, and said, it's us again. We're still looking. Like, let's work something out. And I was like, okay, let's work something out. But again, these are my terms. And I had expressed that I was only comfortable with a 1 year lease. I don't live there. I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know if I will have the manpower, to do this. And so I asked for a 1 year lease, and they agreed, and they said, let's do it. 1 year lease. It was called a temporary pop up lease. But I was still going into a physical space with a physical sign. I had to revamp and make it an actual, it's not like your typical pop up where you're just putting in, a
Yeah.
table. It's not that. It was like I'm creating a physical space for a year. And the good thing about the 1 year lease, obviously on my end, is that if it didn't work out, then we call it quits. And I did the best I could. The problem was is that I went in and it was doing fantastic. It was so much work. It was truly spreading myself as thin as absolutely possible. But the way that my brand was like taking off in that space, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is everything I could have ever hoped for my business. But so I ended up moving in June. I believe I got the keys. in the Tampa location. And so I knew I had until the following July. Um, and so in May of 2024, I hadn't heard anything. So I reached out to the property manager. And also, it's important to note that the girl that had continuously reached out to me all 3 times left the company in December of 2023 after being with the company for 7 years. So she was the person that was in charge of our conversation. She left the company. So in May, I reached out to the person that has now taken over, my lease,
Account.
to see, hey, I know that we're getting towards the end. I've loved it here. I'm really excited to be here. How could we make this last? And she said, oh yeah, no, like, sorry, we've already signed over to a permanent tenant. We're looking for, she was very nice about it. She did say it has nothing to do with you. We've loved having you
Yeah.
here. And just basically, they're looking for national tenants 7 to 10 years. And so, I mean, it was absolutely heartbreaking. And then on top of that, and she's like, and they want it sooner than your lease is over. So you have to vacate by June 8th. And I was like, what? What? And so it was just, oh my God, a crushing moment. But I've been through a lot of crushing things. So it is what it is. And you just move along.
What? So obviously, that there is a market in Tampa for you.
Yes.
So has that left a taste now of like, I want to try to figure out another place of how I can do it? Or you're kind of like, I'll just open something else in like Central Florida? Or what do you, what did it kind of end up doing? Because I mean, that's gotta be a tough one. Cause especially since you saw the success of it. But at the same time, the heartbreak part of it, I mean, definitely lessons learned, but still.
Mhm. Yeah. So originally, when I had found out, my immediate thought was, okay, where do I have to find a place to go immediately? And so I'm like looking all over Tampa, and what I'm finding is that the lease costs and lease like time sign, like 7 to 10 years, was really expensive and really long, and nothing in Tampa is going to be as good as Hyde Park Village. Like, it is like top of the
It
line,
hit, yeah, it hit the location hit with your demographic.
as good as it gets. And so I'm like, I really was burning the candle at both ends. And if I'm going to continue to do that, like, it has to be fantastic. And I just couldn't find something that was going to compare. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to keep doing this if it's not going to hit the same as that one did. And so I made the difficult decision to move everything back. I still have displays in my garage, and I'm like always like, do I open a second, or do I just love on my space? And I think I've become content with, like, this is my home, this is my space, this is my community, and I just want to give it everything that I have got, and also without sacrificing so much of my personal life for it. It's like, at the end of the day, is it what's more important?
No, I can only imagine. And then I was kind of curious, like, how did you end up having to hire? I'm assuming hire staff to work
I
in
did.
Tampa while you were there. So that's a tough one too, because you have no idea like what's happening over there. I mean, obviously there's cameras and stuff, but still, it's like, what's
Yeah.
going on over there?
Right. Yeah. So it's funny. I looked back at my W-2s for the year, like last year, 2024, and I had like, I've had 17 employees on payroll just in 2024. I'm like, that sounds to me like just so mind blowing, because obviously I'm not having 17 employees at a time, but this is a temporary, small shop
Yeah,
job. They're college kids. They move on, they graduate, or they find, their career. And so I never will like be sad. I'm always wishing the best for my employees. But
yeah,
yeah, it's true. Over there, I had like a staff at nine at a time, and you're depending on these people to want to love your store and show up for your store, and you're not even nearby. So if they don't show up, like, it's not opening, and it's a lot of pressure.
yeah. I can't even imagine,
Yeah.
especially since like that's definitely got to be tough for sure. What
Yeah.
Let's talk about a little bit about what are some of your favorite things about running your business.
Yes. So this I think it's important to note now, I work full time. So this is a part, I call it my hobby jobby, even though that I think that definitely doesn't give it enough of credit of what it actually is.
Yeah,
But
it's
it's
your
important
second
to know.
full-time job is what it is.
Yeah,
That
it's actually a
yeah,
second full-time
yeah.
job. But so my favorite aspect of having my store is the creative outlet. It's something that, like, if in my, full-time job, I'm working, under somebody, which I have no problem with it. But here it's like I have complete creative freedom to, if I wake up with an idea, I don't need approval. I go for it. I mean, obviously my customer is my boss, but I do things for my customer, and I don't have to wait, getting approval from this person, this person, this person. I wake up, I have an idea, and I'm like, let's put this in action. And I would say that's my absolute favorite part. Also, like, growing a community has been amazing. I've met so many of, like, even my current friendships have been customers first. So growing a community has been such an amazing part. And I will never, like, if this store closes tomorrow and I'm 99, this is going to have been an imprint on my life forever. And all the people that I have met, I'm going to remember, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got to meet, talk to, and experience this community and be a part of it. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do you think has been something, and I love the fact that you did bring up the fact that this is your second
mhm.
full-time job, and obviously you have another one because you're a mom of two, so that's another
Correct.
full-time job. But
Yeah.
so besides that, what's something that people don't understand or know about the things that you do? Because I think, and obviously I think that's like a big shocker because, like, I know and I don't know if you get anything out of this when people tell you, when especially I mean, for me, even when I heard it, you're like, oh, I have a full-time job as well and I do this. Because, like, I take pride when someone says to me, oh, I thought Deli Fresh Spreads was your full-time job. And
Mhm.
I was like, God bless you. I love you. I was like, for
Yes.
thinking that, but no,
Yeah,
it's actually one of a few things that I do. So
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
But what's
absolutely.
something that people don't understand or just don't grasp? That maybe, that it's like, hey, this is something that I got to deal with that you just
Mhm.
don't understand when it comes to running a business like this.
Oh, yes. Okay. You will never respect a small business owner more until you're a small business owner. But I would say, like you noted, with my full time job, I've been a single mom of two for the last 6 years. Like, literally right after I opened my doors is when we separated. And so I've been a single mom the entire time that I've had my store. And then having the business and then a second store at some point. You don't realize how much obviously falls on my shoulders. But if my kid is sick, like, I'm a one woman show, and I also have, a boss to um listen to and hear from. And so I think people are sometimes frustrated if I'm not able to be here the exact hours, or I'm not able to be here more hours, or I'm not able to have everything they wanted for the holidays. And honestly, it is crushing because you want to be the best for your community. But I think what people don't realize is, like, we are one human, and we are trying to be the best that we can. But there's only so much that we can do. And so I think that would be like, people just don't, people expect you to be Target and Amazon. And I get it, because I'm a mom. Sometimes I need convenience, sometimes I need access to things 24/7. But it's small businesses just aren't going to be able to perform the same. And I wish people would, be a little gentler on small businesses in that manner.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I believe it's kind of funny how much you're able to there's like almost sometimes I feel like there's a shorter leash, and which I don't understand, or like, and less empathy when it comes to a smaller business as opposed to, you going to like a chain or something like that. If they mess up, you're like, oh, you're still going to give them another shot. But a
Mhm.
small business could possibly mess up, then you're like, oh no, forget it. And so, which is very tough because, you have no idea what other stuff is going on or they're dealing with,
Right. Yeah.
when it comes to that. And it's not, and a lot of times a small business that's been doing it for a while successfully, they're trying their hardest. And so, yeah, I totally get that aspect of where you kind of, it's kind of almost, it just becomes very difficult sometimes. It's just a difficult thing, but you do it because you love it. And
Mhm.
and that's kind of the big thing, right?
Yeah.
And it is a business at the end of the day. um
Yeah.
no, what do you do? Okay, so I know sometimes the girls come over and help with work and stuff like that, like at the
Mhm.
shop and everything like that. But what do you do when what's Chelsea's like free time? What's like something that you and do to decompress or that you do like that brings you joy, that you do for fun for yourself?
What do you mean free time? No, I'm just kidding. No, so I would say if you know me, and I honestly have brought this into work as well, is I read. I read a lot. I love fiction. I love romance novels, and so I actually have created an adult bookstore within the store because I just can't stop doing things. But a lot of my free time is spent reading. I and spending time with my girls, but I absolutely love getting out in Orlando and trying new restaurants, new stores, visiting all the local spots, showing support when I can. And I would say that's really how I spend most of my free time is just stopping at every other small business in the area and supporting them when I can.
Yeah. What have you based on the growth in the last like 5 to 6 years? And you mentioned like there's other stores that children's stores. How is that when it comes to? Because I've talked to other business owners that have small shops,
Hmm.
like Orlando gift shop type stuff, and there's kind of like there's like a community and a synergy. Is it kind of a similar
Oh yeah.
situation? Because a lot of it also is the big thing. Like no one wants to like no, and it was kind of interesting listening, like talking to Sarah from the Good Crowd and like Jeff from Maffrey's, and like even the tiny shop, like where they're all talking and they're all like, well, we don't want to sell the same things, not because we don't want to support another small business or something like that, but we want to make it because obviously then it becomes saturated and then each person's got like their own thing.
Hmm.
Is it to that level as well for you when it comes to the children's? Because obviously I know you're a little bit different brand, which I think helps in that aspect because then you're kind of really not competing in that aspect when
Right.
it comes to
Yeah.
that. But is
Mhm.
there that kind of synergy as well when it comes to
Oh
small businesses like that?
yeah, I think in Orlando because there's just not so many children's stores. I mean, there's one which I'm sure they won't mind if I name, but Tugboat and the Bird has been on Park Ave for forever. Like I know that they recently sold into new ownership, but they've been there forever. Everybody respects that. If you make it that long in small business, like you are doing something right, and I have nothing but respect for them. And I've been there, I've shopped there, I would shop there for my daughters, and I think it's just obvious that we're just two totally different vibes. Yeah, we'll have overlap of some products, but not rarely would we.
Yeah.
And then the another big store in the area is Mason Baby, and I have to tell you, she is like the sweetest human ever. She is so supportive, and so it is just so nice to watch business that are in the same exact field, although again, totally different vibes, but
Yeah.
we have overlapping, and to be in a small shop community where we're supporting each other, we're sending each other, oh, I ran out of that one, but I know somebody that has it. Like I will send people to her, she'll send people to me. A lot of our secondhand goods comes from her, and so yeah, there's not so many children's stores, but never have I ever like had anything negative to say about the
Yeah.
small business owners and the children's. And I would say like I'm friends with Sarah and Maffrey's and Stacey from, and we have a, I don't know if they've mentioned
A
this, but we
group
have
chat.
yes, we have a
Yes.
group chat and we
Yes.
are
Yes.
always supporting each other. We meet up. We are like, hey, like what are we going to do different? How can we get the name out there? And just the business community, small business community in Orlando is like no other. I know that for a fact because I was in Tampa. And it was completely different. It was not the same energy. I was like, oh, well, okay, it's like that here. And so I'm just really, really grateful that like this is who I'm surrounded by.
No, I absolutely love that, and I love hearing that because that's the one thing that the big vibe that I've gotten, and even in my like in my world because I'm the one that does like the pop up side of the
Hmm.
house doing pop up events. Like there is a quite a bit of synergy, and
Hmm.
like everyone realizing like, hey, we can all succeed and we can all kind of help each other, and what can we do and build? It's like so, and it's funny because like a lot of them I call themselves like friender vendors or frienders
Yeah.
and stuff like that because that's what you end up becoming because you're all on the same mission,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So I think that's phenomenal. What advice do you have for someone wanting to start something?
I would say if you want to start something and you feel like, there's a gap in the market, or even if there's not a gap in the market, everybody's going to do it differently. I would say there's never going to be the right time. So I wouldn't wait around for like, the perfect year, the perfect season, the perfect setting, the perfect location. Like you have to just get started because it's going to be difficult no matter what. So I would say don't wait around and always stay true to yourself. This is what I tell anyone that asks me like for advice for opening a small business. You're going to get so much feedback from customers, from other business owners. Like you should do this, you should try this, you should try this. But and it's always you have to listen to it, take it in, listen to the criticism, but at the end of the day, like stay true to yourself, because if you do something that is not true and authentic to your business, it is going to come off as not true or authentic, and people will read it, people will feel it, and at the end of the day, like no, not everybody is for my secondhand section, and that is okay, but I think that they come in here and they're like, okay, yeah, you know what, like it's not for me, but it feels so right because it is true and authentic to the vision that you've created in here. And so just stay true, stay authentic, don't wait for the right time, just get started.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
get, is there words to live by or advice that you go by or a motto that you go by any chance?
uh I would say the one thing that gets me through, especially because I'm so busy, is time management. And so it's not necessarily a motto,
Yeah.
but it is a way of life. And if you don't block out time and, stay responsible and hold boundaries to your time, then it's going to be complete chaos. And you cannot get to where you want to be with a million things on your plate if you do not manage your time.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Where can people follow, shop, and support you?
Yes. So our biggest platform would be on Instagram. That's where we would love to have you at Yaya and Lou on Instagram. We do have a Facebook. I try really hard to check those messages too. And then we actually have a Pinterest page that we love to keep up on. And then if you want to shop us, we're www.yayaandlou.com, and you will find all of our new items and our secondhand items on there. You'll find any information for our play area on there as well.
Yep, as well as your event space information.
Yep.
And then also like if you're going to do the encore and you want to like, hey, I have some products,
Yep.
you have like all your lists, all that stuff in there, which is
Yep.
great. I think it's super useful because then that way you're kind of like, okay, I know what I can bring or what she's going to take or what she's interested in. Do I have this? Do I not? And then you can it'll make life a little bit easier for everyone then.
Absolutely. Yep.
No, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I'm so glad we got a chance to chat. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. That's our show for today. Thank you so much to Chelsea Santos of Yaya and Lou for being on and having during a lunch break with me. Definitely make sure to check them out if you're in College Park. Check them out online. Give them a follow. She's great. She does some really good work on her social as well. If you enjoyed the show, definitely make sure to subscribe. Tell your friends. If you want to support me, check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads. Obviously, I'm all about sandwich selfies. But thank you until next time. Keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion.